The problem with permatherapy. In this video, I'm going to share my thoughts about permanent therapy. In other words, the idea that therapy should be something that everybody does all the time, weekly. I'm against it, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why. Now, permatherapy is a term that I heard when I was in graduate school. One of my teachers used it. She was against it. And I always thought that was kind of interesting, and it made me thoughtful about that issue. Now, many therapists these days, and they've influenced many clients or potential clients to think this way too, will say that all humans should be in therapy all the time on a weekly basis. Okay? It's this idea that therapy is always a good thing. There's always things you can work on. There's always the ways you can grow. And I am opposed to this idea. I think that it's actually not good for clients long term and is bad for therapy in general, okay? So therapy is something that arose in a medical context. It was something that developed as a kind of antidote to certain psychological problems. And just like don't go to a doctor every week just for the heck of it, but you go to the doctor when you're sick, so the doctor can offer you something that will help you feel better or function better. Therapy, similarly, I think is something you go to when you're not doing it well, when there's something that's coming up that's indicating some kind of problem, some kind of symptom, anxiety, depression, paranoia, negativity, whatever it may be. There's a whole bunch of different symptoms that people can have that might motivate them to come to therapy. And generally, my approach to therapy will be to find out what the client is struggling with or suffering from, and then work with them in such a way that they suffer less and less and enjoy life and function better and better. And so then when this person gets better, it's natural. It may be that you start by meeting weekly. I often recommend starting with weekly meetings. I think that's, often a good way to start. But that as the person gets better, they need the therapy less and they come in less frequently. And it may be eventually they stop coming in. Now, that's not to say there aren't clients who might benefit from being in therapy for quite a number of years. I myself have been kind of in and out of therapy and through the course of my life, and on some occasions I've done it for quite a number of years. I think that's going to be valuable. I'm not opposed to long-term therapy or therapies that last for quite a number of years, but what I do believe is that therapy should be purposeful, and that when you say, well, everybody should be in therapy all the time on a weekly basis, that purpose can go out of it very easily, right? And the therapist can turn into a kind of surrogate friend and take up space and energy and time in that person's life that if it wasn't taking up that space, the person might, number one, experience certain problems and be motivated to solve them in their lives, or number two, to have the space and energy to solve those problems. For example, if the therapist ends up functioning as a surrogate friend, well, maybe the client needs to make more friends or improve the quality of the friendships that they have. And because the therapist is providing the kind of balm, there is less motivation to do so, but it's not a genuine solution to the problem. It keeps the client kind of humming on a low level of, okayness, as opposed to, sometimes what can happen, a person kind of gets a little better from being in therapy, switches down to maybe every other week. This is something I've experienced in my practice, and then becomes aware of certain problems in their life that the therapy had kind of been hiding through a little bit. And they may then resume weekly meetings, but there's a new sense of purpose. The therapy is invigorated because the client is more aware of what needs to be worked on. You see what I'm saying? And so I think, thinking in terms of permanent therapy really kind of like diminishes the energy and the purpose in the therapy. Now, why does this get promoted? I guess I don't have enough, evidence to say that therapists promote this because it's economically convenient, but I think that it's worth looking into that because it is economically convenient to have that ideology that everybody should be in therapy on a weekly basis all the time. Because if you can get a number of clients into your practice, and who are persuaded that they should come in weekly and never stop, um, then you don't have to do as much marketing, frankly. You don't have to work as much to get new clients into the practice as the clients you've been working with get better and don't need the therapy anymore, right? You also don't have to do quite as much work at the very beginning of therapy, which, is a very sensitive time when someone first comes into therapy. You don't really know them yet. You've got to work to kind of like get to know them, help them get involved in the process, figure out what's going to work for this person in terms of what you're doing therapeutically. Also, you don't have to deal as much with the issue of kind of negotiating changes in the therapy, right? Changing the frequency. And you don't have to work with negotiating endings to therapy, which, it takes a certain amount of labor, and also can be emotionally, emotionally painful. Especially if you worked with someone for a while, you and the client can develop a certain kind of camaraderie. It can be sad to say goodbye. You don't have to deal with that as much if you have this idea like everybody should be in therapy all the time. But I have seen it happen where someone goes into therapy with a therapist, it gets better, feels like, hey, I don't think I need this so much anymore, and then is pressured to stay and just keep going. And I really don't like that. I don't think that's a good thing. So, okay, I just wanted to offer my thoughts on this matter. I imagine that it's probably controversial amongst some people. If you like my channel and you disagree with what I've said, let me know. Tell me what you think in the comments. I'm always open to debate and disagreement. I like that. But these are my thoughts about it, and I appreciate your listening, and I'll be back with more soon.